So hey everyone, I'm Eric from Charlie Division, and I'm here with my friend Cristi Bell-Huff from Chemical Insights Research Laboratory. A couple years ago, I actually worked with her and her team as part of the Clear the Air task force. So Cristi, why don't you take a minute and kind of introduce what that task force was and what we were working on.
So that task force was really focused on pulling together guidance and best practices around what to do before, during, and after a wildfire. And in particular, that was really important for our work because we do a lot of research into the area of what we call Wildland-Urban Interface fires. So WUI for short. Super fun to say, WUI.
It is super fun to say.
But WUI fires are different in that the fuel that the fire consumes is wildland vegetation, but it is also urban materials, building materials, the things in those buildings, vehicles, different kinds of electronics, all of that combines to create a different kind of emission from that different fuel.
Right, exactly. So I've got quite a number of years in the fire service as a firefighter. When I think of UL in any discussion about fire, especially my friends in the fire service have probably heard of FSRI,
Yes.
Fire Safety Research Institute, another UL research institute.
Right.
But what you and what we were looking at on that task force wasn't anything there. I mean, they also do some work in this area,
Right.
but it's a different, we're looking at different hazards, correct?
Exactly.
So what was it that the Clear the Air task force was dealing with that's less about the actual fire itself?
So our niche is really environmental exposures and their impacts on human health. So what we were really interested in is what are the exposure risks from these kinds of fires?
Right.
There's a different fuel, there's a different emission. What does that mean for human health?
Right.
So it was more about air quality, exposures through the different emissions, but also exposures through settled dust and the aftermath of a fire as well.
Yeah, and I remember, some of the information that's in the guidance document that we'll get to in a second. From the environmental and exposure standpoint, like a lot of the East Coast of the United States dealt with several years ago with wildfires in Canada. The health impacts of these wildfires can extend far beyond the immediate impact of the fire itself. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So the plume from a wildfire can travel hundreds of miles, even across the continent, as we have seen in recent years, for sure. And that plume actually, it's full of complex mixture of, like I said, particles, VOCs, different kinds of gases that have come from the burning. But then as the plume starts to travel, that whole chemical mixture evolves. There's reactions that are happening, there's particles that are settling out, different kinds of things going on in that plume. So as the plume travels, people in the vicinity of that plume are exposed to a variety of different things as it goes.
And it really does change based on how far away you are from the seat of the fire.
Right.
Because different things drop out at different distances, and like you said, they interact with the atmosphere. So
they can even mix with other pollutants that were already in the air. It could be automobile emissions or industrial emissions as the plume travels over a chemical plant. Maybe there's other emissions that are ending up in there. So
for the general population, what is the hazard that they should be aware of? Because most people are like, wow, that fire, like they're really getting hammered out in Colorado, but they may be in Alabama. What would you say to people that aren't dealing with the immediate impacts of a fire, but should be aware of the work that your team has done and what's available in the guidance document?
So what I would say to that is to really pay attention to your air quality index. But I would also say, just to sort of illustrate how widespread the impact of fires are, there's a much higher percentage of health impacts from wildfires in the eastern U.S. than there are actually in the western U.S. because of the traveling of the plume.
Yeah.
But also the cost of those impacts. We've done some analysis around the cost of wildfire impacts, and it's actually higher on the East Coast because of the impacts of the air quality and health impacts there.
All because of the indirect impacts of these fires.
Yes.
Wow. you know, that's really interesting that even though a lot of these fires occur in the western half of the U.S., the majority of the health impacts are seen way downwind of that.
Not in the West.
Yeah, not in the West.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible. What is the information that people should know is available to help them just understand what the problem actually is and how much they should really be concerned about it and what it is they can do to help protect themselves?
We have published our guidance document around a lot of these things.
Which you are...
And I am holding.
200C, yes.
But we also have used the information in that guidance document and kind of translated it into what we call a toolkit. Mm-hmm. So it's called the Downwinds Toolkit. Very practical suggestions on how to be monitoring your air quality. Gives you certain levels of air quality that you might want to start taking actions at. Mm-hmm. Different things that you can pay attention to in terms of protecting your health before, during, and after a wildfire. And one thing I think that a lot of people don't think about is the cleanup after the fact. A lot of people think, once the plume is gone, I'm good. I'll go in and I'll start cleaning up. So you'll see people cleaning up in a fire-stricken area in shorts and flip-flops. Right. Whereas there's a real hazard for what we call third-hand emissions. Okay. And that would be things that have settled into the dust. So now that dust and ash contains that complex mixture of pollutants that was in the plume. Right. And now it is in this settled dust and residues. Right. And so now you're getting another way to be exposed to those pollutants. Yeah. Maybe through the skin, could even be through ingestion, maybe it's contaminated water, but maybe it's on your hands and there's a hand-to-mouth kind of behavior that can also expose you to that. Yeah.
And again, going back to the particular hazards of the growth of the Wildland-Urban Interface.
Yes.
Because in just a straight wildfire, it's just a really, really, really big bonfire, essentially, where it's organic materials that are burning.
Right.
I mean, not great. You shouldn't breathe that stuff in. There's particulates and stuff like that, but you don't, when you get into fires that are now impacting homes, you get all the composites and synthetic materials that are in homes, and they're in the is it on the website or is it in the guidance document that says how much more fuel load is in a home versus an acre of forest?
There is a comparison. I'm pretty sure that's on the Clear the Air website.
Firehealthrisk.org.
Yes. And really talking about those different kinds of pollutants in a WUI fire, you know, you're going to get things like metals and cyanates and chlorine and all from those sort of man-made materials that you wouldn't necessarily get from just a sort of traditional wildfire, you know.
The website is wildfirehealthrisks.org.
Yes, and all of those resources that we talked about are there on that website, including the Downwind Toolkit, the guidance document that we created, all of that.
Yeah. And some of the information that you guys have published as a part of this task force in UL 200C and the website, even down to how to DIY a particular air cleaner if you needed to, if you're downwind, if you've been notified that you've got poor air quality because of an upwind wildfire, something like that. There's even, you know, some, you know, rough instructions on putting together an air filter for your house if you don't have sufficient filtering or circulation in your house.
Right, or if you're thinking you need an air cleaner and you go to Target or you go to a store and they're out because it's a an air quality warning or whatever, you can actually DIY yourself an air cleaner using a box fan, a traditional air filter, and some duct tape. And we've got a video that shows you how to put that together. Yeah. And I think it's a very kind of simple and elegant solution to cleaning air, and we've actually tested it and it works.
And I think that is what is so great about, you know, outfits like you guys publishing this document and providing this guidance, is because, you know, you can go on YouTube and look up any number of solutions, but like, these guys are scientists, like they're professionals. So like, if it's made it into one of their documents, you can take that to the bank that it's going to provide relief from the problem.
We've usually done the homework for you.
Yeah, you've done the homework. You have extra letters at the end of your name that I don't, so I trust Cristi. If you've watched this video, thank you. And now you're at least aware that there are health impacts to big wildfires, particularly wildland-urban interface fires, you know, even though you could be hundreds or thousands of miles away from the problem itself. So hopefully you now have that awareness. So
yeah,
that's great.
Well, thanks.
Thank you for chatting with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.